the conversation we've been having this week around decentering men has brought in a lot of really interesting and diverse bubbles, and including TERFs, including transphobes, including racists. Like, usually what I do is I highlight the comments, I delete them, block them, and then I send them to my Discord so we can all, together. I wish, what YouTube could do to step up its game is do what TikTok did and do like GIF responses and picture responses, because then we could all react to like racist comments. Like, we could all just like, is that transphobic? But instead, if I leave those comments up in this space that is a safe space, sometimes it feels like I'm almost condoning them or something. So I'm like, delete. But then it does punish my channel because then it's not getting interactions. And it's a whole fucking complex, what should I do? You know what I mean? Anyways, so thank you for sharing the stream and liking it and becoming a member and all that jazz. But I will just say that I have had to deal with, because of this 4B conversation and decentering men conversation, the sort of what I call the Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris form of male feminism, which is like somebody this morning said, you're lucky you weren't born basically where your parents were born. They were born in Iraq, because if you were there, you wouldn't even be able to cry. Like, it is like, so in the name of like feminism, they're like anti-West Asia. I don't know. It's like a whole thing. So like, that's obviously not good. And then on the other side of it, I got this comment this morning that was like, why is Brittany so anti-TERF? It's not wrong for women or females to want spaces away from males. And I was like, okay. And then like, so it's, that's why I wanted to know where these ladies were coming from, because I think in my content as a queer person, especially, we talk so heavily about these things like patriarchy from that lens, that it's really difficult, I think, for, to try to guess who's about to come into this content. So first, I want to start with a philosophical question that then leads us into sort of how all of this is connected, because there were some comments I also got from people that said like, oh, you're so naive about patriarchy. Because you're queer, you have the privilege to not date men. Okay, with peace and love, girls, that is not what being queer means. And I know some people thought I was in a WW or WLW relationship. Like, I'm not a lesbian, right? I hear you. And so I understand all of this misunderstanding of where I'm coming from. But it's because you're so in the patriarchy, you're so in the heterosexuality, you have no way to fathom what queerness could even look like, because you think queer means gay. Like, gayness can also be very patriarchal. And I am a gender deconstructionist, right? Like, I think gender is a performance. I don't think it's biological, even though everything we do is biological, right? I think we are all having a biological experience. But I want to read these comments to you because I think there's like a really weird straight woman victim complex that appears where they literally think they're having a harder time than queer people. And I'm like, look, I don't want to play this game of who has it harder, but there's no way under white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism that queer people are doing better across the board, when white cis women are notoriously known for throwing people of color under the bus, black and brown people under the bus, including little boys, little children. We know this, right? So this like whole conversation around like who has it the worst, like, not to mention, like, just like there's so much, like, I don't want to play this game. I don't want to do this whole like who's suffering more when we should all be talking about how do we all suffer less, right? So it was just weird getting those comments, I think, from people that are like, oh, you're privileged being queer in a world where like this Trump administration is giving women money to make babies, and people are like, trans people are being threatened of being like kidnapped from ICE. So like, it's just a very, like, I'm just very confused about why we're playing these games. Anyways, all of that to say, there's nuances to this. I'm compassionate. I'm empathetic. I get it. We're all struggling. But I just don't think that we need to ignore the problems that our communities are facing as a whole, including gay people who suffer from internalized homophobia, right? I have this whole video on my Bert Simon channel called like When You're Gay But Not Queer, for this exact reason, because you have the Jeffree Stars and the Leo Skeppis, the Blair Whites, all these people that play for the conservative side, right? It's not gonna, like, that side is adjacent to the TERF side that says like women need spaces away from males. Like, you know what, like, guys, please. Okay, I'm tired. So let's start here. It says, hey, Bray, I don't actually understand what is the purpose of thinking our place in the universe versus thinking our place on Earth, because isn't the sort of bubble that the Earth all that our lives will ever be? I mean, sure, humanity will probably leave Earth in a big way in the future, but that's a very far out. Okay, so first of all, when I talk about this is my philosophical framework. So in case you're new to the channel, my name is Brittany Simon. We do philosophy through pop culture, and I am working on a framework called the levels, that is about having a deeper relationship with your biological experience. So obviously we are biological creatures that have evolved on this thing called planet Earth. And obviously we know there are different planets, within the universe. And of course we know that this is the only planet Earth or planet that we have any kind of concept of reality. So we base all of our life on this planet, but life exists outside of this planet. So you can either look at yourself as it relates to only planet Earth, literally, or you can have a concept that we are a part of this great universe. But this has nothing to do with like the fact that people want to go to Mars. Like, human beings going from one planet to another still puts them at the center of the universe. Like, the reason men want to land on the moon is like, it's basically a dick contest for them. Like, it's an ego contest. It is not about humility. It is not about gratitude. They think they're transcending nature by flying to the moon. And I'm saying you cannot transcend nature. You are the moon. You are nature. You can't transcend it. You can't get into a rocket and fly to the moon and say, oh, see, we're not animals. No, you're still an animal. You're still nature. Just like when the beaver builds a dam. When the beaver builds a dam, he doesn't transcend nature. It is within his nature to build dams, right? So, when we have these conversations, people will be like, oh, Brittany, but it's our nature. It's our nature. Yeah, everything is our nature. Let's have a deeper relationship with our nature so we can make better decisions for everybody. So maybe that will make sense. Like, look, I categorize people within 2s and 5s. That's what I call them. 2s only think of themselves in relation to the earth. You don't need to think of yourself outside of the universe to have a better life. You can be joyful there, but you do still have to deconstruct bigotry and everything. 5s are just people who it wasn't enough. Like, for me, it just wasn't enough to say like, oh, my life revolves around the earth. Like, no offense to human beings, I love you and everything, but you're just not that interesting in terms of like whether or not I should stay alive for you, right? So I had to make a decision because I suffered from suicidal ideations, to make the decision of like, is this enough? Because right now you're not selling it to me, right? Genocide, racism, transphobia, patriarchy, and you're like, oh, but stay alive and do this thing, live under capitalism. And I'm like, I'm going to need more of an incentive. Like, I'm going to need a little bit more of an incentive to stick around. And for Brittany, the way that I stopped being suicidal was basically having the realization that like, this is nature experiencing itself, that I am a part of nature, and that yes, it will be natural for me to die one day. And it's always a matter of how. And so how do you make peace with that as a reality? And so I sat there and I said, okay, I'm going to stick around and I'm going to do something about it. Even though I know it's just nature experiencing itself, I'm going to try, right? This is kind of Britt Hartley's work as well. She works with nihilistic people. It's the idea that you don't stay alive and have a meaningful life because you're going to change the world. You stay alive and have a meaningful life because it is meaningful to be alive, right? The meaning comes from the fact that I exist and that this is my only chance to have this experience, and then I'll die anyway. So the reality is like accepting that you'll die anyways and doing something about it. But like, some people don't even have that, right? Like, this is how I want to connect this thought. So this person says, off topic a bit, but I'd love if you could talk about forgiving toxic parents. I know a lot of people hold a grudge against their parents who didn't do good enough while raising them and want to forgive them, but don't know how to, either because the parents are not open to the conversation about this, or because when they talk to said parents about the past, they just turn themselves into victims. Do you think forgiving these parents is essential, or can you live with the rage? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We didn't just pop into existence. And so neither humans nor you individually as a person, but there are people who think like their whole identity, their whole sense of meaning only exists within their family construct. Like, kind of imagine a village of people who, you ever see that movie? What's that movie with M. Night Shyamalan? You know that movie, The Village, where they literally think you're watching the movie and you think like you're kind of in before times. And then all of a sudden you see an airplane and you realize like, oh my God, they've been in the modern world the whole time. That's what it sounds like to me when people are like, oh, we'll only ever know the planet Earth. In the same way that you say, oh, we'll only ever know our family, or we'll only ever know this village. Every time you don't acknowledge that everyone's living in different bubbles and everyone's having a different experience of life, you are saying to yourself, I live in a planet without airplanes. And yet there are airplanes. You just don't have access to them. Like, the world is having a different experience than you. So everyone is having their own experience. Yours is just as valid, but you have to understand that it's not the only one, right? So just for context, this was yesterday's stream, and this was the section that inspired them to ask me this comment. So let's watch past Brittany talk for just a second. Explain to people that paying your parents' bills is not normal or healthy. It might be normal in your bubble, but it's not healthy. Teenagers should not feel responsible for paying for their parents' electricity bills. Do you know there's a whole bubble where parents take out credit lines of credit in their kids' names and kids don't know until they're 18 and they don't know why their credit is shot? Guys, we're not all growing up the same. Some of your parents are the first relationships you have and they were abusive. Fuck the fact that you're getting with men or women. Like, before you even saw romantic love, you had toxic love at home. Not everyone had the privilege of even growing up with healthy parents. So when we have these conversations, I try to go back to the root. Everyone keeps thinking we just like popped into existence as adult women dating adult men. No, we had parents, we had legacy, we had grandparents, we had aunts and uncles, we had somebody before us, right? Imagine, I always joke, my friend, my bestie grew up with parents who took out a line. Okay. So, President Brittany talking now. So, okay, great point. So the reason I hold such a strong opinion about forgiving your parents is because I want you to forgive yourself for existing and for having trouble with it. I want you to forgive the fact that you're angry and forgive the fact that you're bitter. And I want you to let it go. You're not saying what they did was okay. You're saying, I accept that we're animals on a planet and that we're having a moment together, that my parents made me and I didn't have that consent. And yet I have the ability to consent to letting go of the burden of existing in the first place by saying that we really are just like all people experiencing life, right? So you don't have to talk to them. You don't have to have a relationship with them. You can be open with boundaries, but it's from a place of love and compassion and not a place of rage or bitterness, because it's just not good for your skin. It's not good for you. You will hold on to it. And I say that as a person who, maybe this is just personally true for me, but while I was angry at my parents instead of angry for my parents, it was bringing me down. So you don't want to be angry at the world. That's what makes you a school shooter. You want to be angry for the world. That's what makes you feed people, right? That's what we say on this channel. Well, I was angry at my parents. I was self-harming. When I was angry for my parents and the injustice that happened to them in their childhood, I became less self-harming, right? You have to remember, my grandma, my mom's mom, was married at 10 years old, 10. To my grandpa, who was 17. My grandma, who was married at 10, had 17 children, not counting miscarriages, 17 children. Okay. My mom is one of 17 children born in Iraq, born without electricity, born in a completely remote village. Like, it's different now a little bit, but like born in a place of, okay. Remember that, like, when I think about my mother and I think about her life, my mom was the very first woman in her family to ever get divorced. Her parents were so mad at her for her first husband, for leaving her first husband. They didn't talk to her until she had like 3 more kids with my dad, right? Like, imagine the amount of like struggle and strength it took for my mother to even make that decision, right? To even say, I'm going to do this, even though everyone is making me the enemy and everyone's mad at me. Like, some of her siblings wouldn't even talk to her. Okay. Even though it was many of her siblings who did help her, she had a community, right? So the idea is, like, instead of being angry at my mother or at my father, I'm angry for them. I'm angry that they even had to make those decisions. I'm angry that they were put in those positions. I'm angry about what happened to my parents when they were kids. I'm angry about the whole makeup of my family legacy. I'm just angry for everybody because they deserve better. They deserve better when they were kids. They deserve better when they were adults. Now, obviously, now that I'm older, I will also continue to be that generational person who breaks those curses. Like, I will also continue to chip away at everything that I'm learning about my own life. Like, they say you might be the first gay person to come out in your family, which I was, but you're not the first gay person in your family. You might be the first trans person to come out in your family, but you're not the first trans person in your family, right? So when I think about forgiveness, what I think of it as, what my therapist reminded me it's freeing myself of the burden of carrying the weight of a tragedy that wasn't mine to carry, right? Forgiving myself for existing and being angry, and forgiving myself for feeling so lost in the universe, only to realize that once I could forgive, I could also forgive myself for not being perfect. And I could forgive myself for not being good with money or good at dating or good at whatever I was doing. And then I could forgive myself and I could learn to be better. So yes, I recommend that you forgive your parents in the same way that I recommend you forgive the world. I recommend you forgive every person for being what they are. Forgive every dog who's ever killed a person, or every human who's ever hurt anybody, or any child that's ever, embarrassed you in public, or forgive, so you can move forward. But forgiveness is for you. It is not to then say, now that I've forgiven you, you can come back into my life as if nothing has ever happened. No. So then we go into accountability. So forgiveness without accountability is enablement. Okay. So you don't want to enable. You have to forgive, then take account. There must be accountability, and then we can move on to restorative justice and or rehabilitation, right? So again, we do not want to enable. This is very important because I know a lot of you, and I'm not looking at chat because I don't want to get distracted too much, but I'll answer your comments in a minute. But I don't want you to think to yourself, okay, I forgave my abuser, so now they can come back inside the house. No. Forgive your abuser, hold them accountable, and sometimes that looks like never leaving prison again. And as I say this, abolish prisons, abolish the police. So these are multi-layered intersections of reality that we have to contend with, which is why I thought it was interesting that there were people in these comments saying like, oh, like you've been so privileged that you forgot that patriarchy is all around you. This comment here says, I think that in constantly deconstructing the patriarchy, you're starting to forget that it still exists outside of you. And therefore you'll have to make decisions that to navigate society as it is and not how you want it to be. So they're pulling the naive card. I actually got called naive in a comment above this. I'll share with you in a second. And I just said to them, well, it's hard to forget it exists when my reproductive and voting rights are being threatened. And I said, I'm more than aware that it exists when people in my family blame the children for their own assaults rather than holding the men accountable. I haven't forgotten. I'm just aware of it in a way that doesn't allow it to hold me back when it comes to advocating for vulnerable people and my own right to live happy and joyful life. It wasn't easy getting here, and I'm still and always will be working on it. But there is another way to live under patriarchy. Let me know if you have any questions. I stream Monday through Friday, right? So the dilemma is, and this is why I say, you cannot let your oppressors define your joy. Your oppressors exist, but they cannot define your joy. So liberate your spirit from oppression, even though you know you live in a world that is oppressive. Because again, that's how the oppressor gets into your psychology. That's why I was so suicidal. I kept thinking as a queer person, I don't belong here. And by the way, straight women were a big part of why I wanted to commit suicide because they also didn't want to be around lesbians or gay people or trans people. So remember that it wasn't just men that was making me think I didn't have a place in the universe. It also was straight homophobic, transphobic women. Okay? So remember that. Remember, you are not exempt from causing problems in the universe. And that includes realizing you are not deconstructing. Deconstructing doesn't even mean to dismantle. Deconstruction means to pull it apart, to understand it in details, to reform it into something better, right? It's understanding, it's realizing like, oh, wait, maybe what I was taught wasn't right? Okay. Then I got this other comment that says, girl, I have such a push and pull thing going on with your philosophies, which, very common response from people. It's okay. Sorry if I'm annoying. Definitely not annoying. I appreciate this, the respectful discourse that comes with the videos like these. So, and I said, like, you're not annoying. That's totally, obviously, right? They said, I agree with many of the things you say on an ideological level, but I think being WLW is its own type of privilege. First of all, I love that people think I'm a lesbian. Fun fact, came out as a lesbian when I first came out. It was a very big deal because when I grew up in Orange County, in the 2000s, the 80s, 2000s. I was born in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Okay, right? All my friends were like, Brittany, if you're going to come out, you have to pick lesbian or straight. And I was like, I don't know. Do I have to pick? And they're like, yes. Now I'm pansexual, right? But I love the idea that people are listening to me think I'm a lesbian. Love the lesbians. There's a reason why they're the first on the LGBT. Okay, love the lesbians. Chat said, or this person said, let me see, hold on. Okay, I think it's its own type of privilege in this arena that you can partially blind you to what a lot of hetero women have options wise when it comes to dating men. You even mentioned multiple times that you live a different experience than women who are attracted to straight cis men. It's almost like you're trying to be obtuse sometimes. Like, girl, I know you didn't just try to not all men. Us, when T made a statement about men always choosing themselves, that's referencing Teresa, living with a man. And race and gender are constructs. That's super easy for you to say. Might as well say you don't see color. So this person hasn't learned about race and gender being constructs yet. Like, they don't know yet. So, right? So, like, they're very passionate. Of course, they're having a push and pull with my content. They haven't learned yet that race is a construct. They don't know that it's a construct. Even though you and I probably take it for granted that we know that, many people have yet to be taught that. And they don't, because they think construct means it's not real or that you're not having an actual relationship to it. It means it's not biological, right? It means that, like, race isn't biological. Black and white people do not have different biological experiences other than the ones you might think of that come naturally to you because of It's hard to explain because there are biological differences between some of the makeups, but it's not the way that race is talked about. It's not race realism. It's not IQ. It's not the way you think. So even if you say some Black people suffer from like cancer rates at certain rates, or some people suffer from this, it's not the skin color, right? It's not like the skin of the race, right? So it's hard to explain to people. But it is hard to know if you don't know. So I'm not blaming this person for not knowing. So of course they're going to think I'm saying I don't see color, but that's not the same thing, right? That's the problem. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's see. Chet says that's super for you to say. Might as well say you don't see color. Again, I feel your sentiment is good, and we all hope and work for progress, but we do live in patriarchy. So who cares if something is reactionary? A woman existing within a patriarchy is inherently reactionary. I think you're speaking from experience that you don't have, and many of your opinions as misandry, 4B, etc. lack nuance. Edit. I understand you're not trying to say all men just came off that way. I just read your comment on the other reply, which I totally get. And I said to them, hey, I wrote a comment to you, but it was gone. I don't know why. YouTube deleted my comment. I said, I welcome comments. You're not annoying. I want to expand on something. I want to expand on stream. And I definitely don't want to come off like not all men. Obviously girls, like fuck men, fuck patriarchy. I go on to say straight women do have more privilege over queer LGBTQIA people, especially when we include the intersection of race. I don't want to pit us against each other, but WLW relationships are not easier under patriarchy. I can see why it might appear that way to hold more privilege, but it doesn't in any real way. The privilege some of us have to accept that we might die for who we are, do it anyways. That's the privilege. And that really is a freedom I can explain, and it is a philosophical privilege. There are things worse than death for many of us. One of the things that I do that I'm not saying you should do is that I radically accept that I might die for simply being who I am, and it's worth the risk. I'm not saying you should take this risk, but I'm saying I am willing to take this risk. And it's a step further because I have to declare it. Women exist, that's true, and femicide is up, that is so real. Queer people exist on another layer of threat because they're going to be found out, right? Like men aren't searching to find women out. Women aren't being like trans investigated, right? Women aren't being investigated for whether or not queer people are under scrutiny. There's always a question. Are you gay? I've heard it my whole life, especially from Christian conservatives. Brittany, I want you to babysit my kids, but I'm worried you're gay. Like, you know how men are demonized for being babysitters, right? Well, so are gay people. Gay people, like some straight people, won't let women, right? That was my biggest fear growing up, that like people wouldn't trust me around their kids because I was gay. Because I heard all my life that gay people are pedophiles, even though that's not true. I was worried people would think I was simply because I was gay, because that was the bubble we grew up in. So you have to understand there's a huge layer here that is so real. When like trans women have the statistical probability of violence and death towards trans women, especially if they're Black or brown, is just, it's so devastating. And it can sometimes even be encouraged by women, especially white straight women. So you have to be very cautious. And I don't want to pit us up against each other. I don't want to say like, oh, I suffer more than you suffer. We all suffer. Everyone's suffering. But I just want people to remember there is no privilege in being queer in a homophobic, patriarchal society. The greatest privilege we have is to die loud and proud. And that is a privilege. Some women never get to do that. So maybe that's the privilege we can talk about, right? I said people who are queer, who live their authentic life and fight patriarchy, do it knowing they may be victims of hate crimes, even from straight women. So I think we should remember intersectionality when we have these convos. And I said, also, I'm not in a WLW relationship. Depending on the bubble, that label is mostly used for lesbians. I just don't want to confuse people. Okay. So, there's so much to be said here, but I just want to say, like, I am not naive to the reality of patriarchy. I mean, I say it so much on this channel, you honestly should make it a shot game. On my other channel, the men will come on my channel and be like, take a shot every time she says patriarchy. The issue is that if you fight patriarchy by being the best capitalist, you're not actually fighting patriarchy. You're engaging in patriarchy's game, because patriarchy is in cahoots with capitalism. So as an example, and this is why I say my work probably sounds like I'm saying women should be independent, but no, I'm saying be independent, but don't be a capitalist, right? Look at this video that was going around from Julia.
The center man is to stop talking about them and become an excellent capitalist. The areas of concern. The only way to truly decenter men is to stop talking about them and become an excellent capitalist. The areas of concern should be legacy planning, financial literacy, as well as career trajectory planning, becoming significant in your industry. You cannot have any power without being an excellent capitalist. And being a woman, especially a woman of the global majority, just having money will not get rid of the pains of systemic oppression. When you discern the status quo,
It's interesting that she's talking about the global majority. She's talking about, she's using all of the words, but then she still clings to capitalism. And what's crazier is that 4B Forever is in her chat. 4B Forever saying, I hate when people tell women to stop being capitalists when patriarchy still exists. As long as there's patriarchy, women have to win at capitalism. Yeah, you guys are basically saying, as long as patriarchy exists, I'm going to engage in a system that oppresses marginalized people and is bad for the planet and is bad for everybody else, right? Capitalism is different than making money under capitalism. And I feel like you must learn the difference, okay? There is a difference between engaging in capital or having capital or engaging in capitalism and being a capitalist. Like being a capitalist is different. I'm trying to figure out like how I'm trying to explain this to you, but I always joke, I wish I was a better capitalist, but I can't bring myself to engage in it. It's so unethical. A capitalist is trying to make the most money at the lowest price. Think about it that way. They're trying to make the most money at the expense of whoever it needs to come at the expense of in order to make the most capital. A capitalist is a protection of corporations, right? Like you're protecting the production instead of the people. Like being a capitalist is inherently evil because it engages directly in systems and you want to become a part of that system. Lean-in feminism has already been debunked by leftists 100,000 times. Like lean-in feminism does nothing for women when patriarchy exists because you're still the only woman in the boardroom, right? So like when we engage in capitalism and we're saying be a good capitalist, you're saying engage in the same unethical rhetoric. You know what a capitalist is? All the women who work for Trump. All of those women who work for Trump are playing capitalist patriarchal games. Those are the women who say, if the only way for me to succeed is to shake Trump's hand, I'll do it. That's what capitalism is like, even if you're not shaking Trump's hand. So when you say like, oh, like patriarchy, like is so dangerous, I have to be a capitalist. You're saying the world is so evil, I might as well shake hands with Epstein. That's what a lot of these people justify. That's what a lot of these men are justifying. They're saying this is the only way to get ahead. This is the only way to do things. This is what everyone else is doing. This is how it's supposed to go. This is how you make money. It's survival of the fittest. And I'm saying no. So, okay, living in a capitalist world and learning how to live within your means and learning how to get a good job and learning to, retire is not capitalism. It's survival. That's different than being a capitalist. So I think there's like a confusion here with the language of being a capitalist and in surviving in capitalism, right? Right? Okay, let me scroll up and read some comments and then we'll keep going with this conversation. I just don't want to miss any comments. Okay, let me scroll. Scroll up. Okay. Chet said that was me with my anger, going back to the parent conversation. I wasn't only angry at her, but I was angry at myself. But once I was able to acknowledge that, then I was able to finally let go. I know. There you go. See, I'm telling you. Chet said I find it hard to feel empathy for my mother. She told me she feels empathy, just not for me. And that makes it so hard to feel it for her. I think I feel empathy based off my values. So I feel empathy, I feel sympathy, I feel love and concern for all human beings, all living creatures, all rock trees and everything because of how I view the world, not how they view it. Does that make sense? Like every person was a baby at some point and I have deep empathy for that child, even if you might have deep empathy for the adult, right? So that's how I look at it. That might help you. Just that I stopped going to church because she told our pastor I'm the root of her stress-ridden diseases than going around telling people my cousin's wife sleeps with pastors like she's insane. If you guys have mentally ill parents, don't be ableistic in your embodiment of your anger, and remember that people are suffering from mental health and or they're unethical and or they're liars. We don't get to choose the parents we have or the family members we have, but the truth is like people are suffering, you know? I think about it right now. There's so many viral moments happening on the internet with a bunch of people making fun of certain people. And I'm like, this is mental health. They are scary because they're also giving stalker, but they are also mentally ill. And so have boundaries, be open with boundaries, but don't engage in ableism and don't engage in sort of a righteous anger that says, because I decided I hate these people, they deserve to die, which is why I'm anti-death penalty. Because even if they've done horrendous things, feeling justified to kill people, giving the government the power to kill people is not the answer. So think about it through your values. What are my values versus what are my feelings? Feelings are valid. They're really happening. They're a biological reality. Okay. And then what do I do with those feelings? Because bad things happen to everybody. They don't just happen to good people. Bad things happen to everybody. The only difference is how you react to them. That's the difference. There's no objective morality. There's no God guiding us through the universe. There's only us, an animal species evolved enough to have consciousness in this particular way, enough to have this discussion, and enough to make choices based off of a limited access to free will, right? Okay, let's see. Yeah, chat says forgiveness doesn't mean they have to be in your life. Exactly. Okay, let me see. Let me scroll. And it is hard, guys. I just want you to know, like, everything I'm saying is difficult. Trust me. If life was easy, it wouldn't look this way. Like, if being a good person was easy, the world wouldn't look this way. So be kind and compassionate to yourself. You know what I mean? Okay, let's see. The feedback is interesting only because the one thing you do not lack is nuance, so much so that it's sometimes without listening, you'd think you'd contradicted yourself. Yeah, okay. But I see why people think I am contradicting myself, because I do think sometimes I even fall into the nuance trap, like bubble trap, where I have to remember, like, sometimes it's okay not to be nuanced. So sometimes I will be like, fuck all men, I don't want to hear it. And that's the lack of nuance that basically is signaling to women that I hear you and I hear the struggle we're experiencing. And then, of course, I want to bring us back and remind each other that, like, little boys need to be protected, because when you say fuck all men, they're all perverts, it emboldens people to weaponize that against especially people of color, right? And children. So you can think about Emmett Till, who died in the most disgusting, egregious, horrifying way because a white woman told her husband and brother that Emmett Till whistled at her, which was never true, right? And then Emmett Till, a young child, was beaten to death so severely that his mother had an open casket so we could all see what had happened to her son, right? So when we have these conversations, we have to understand that you have to be very careful about who you send that anger towards, because a lot of the women, a lot of the suffragettes, a lot of the original feminists, a lot of the white women who started a lot of these movements did not always have good intentions, as a lot of them were very racist. And some of them did not want to see Black men get the right to vote before them, right? So, when we have these conversations, it's very important that we recognize and deconstruct how we're showing up in these spaces. And deconstruction, again, is so you understand yourself better. You're not eradicating, you're not erasing it. You're saying, oh, why did this happen? And what is the nuance? And what is the intersection? And, oh, how does it all play into how we end up showing up? And how do I make sure that I don't become bigoted and prejudiced? And also, how do I make sure that while I'm surviving, I don't turn into this? Because this lady with all of her good intentions, and 4B Forever with all their good intentions, are telling women to engage in like disgusting institutions in order to get ahead of men, instead of recognizing that women don't have to be capitalists to liberate themselves. Women can engage in making money and getting paid for their labor, but that's not what capitalism is. That's not the system of capitalism. You know what I'm saying? So when you say I'm a capitalist, you're saying I'm going to engage. That's like saying I'm a white supremacist, right? Versus I'm surviving under white supremacy. You wouldn't recommend that people become white supremacists to survive in white supremacy, right? You wouldn't recommend you become transphobic to exist in in a transphobic world, which you would argue Blair White and some of these trans activists have done, right? You wouldn't engage, and you'd recommend people become trad wives and become patriarchal like housewives in order to survive in patriarchy. Like, yes, if there's a gun to your head, girl, do what you got to do. But most of us do not have a gun to our head. Most of us have to deal with ostracization, which is hard, alienation, hard, maybe losing jobs, hard. But the reality is that most of us do not actually have a gun to our head. So there's like some level of this that I think is like taking everyone's struggle and making your own, which there was some criticism of 4B Forever for co-opting the 4B movement out of South Korea. Because when South Korean women are doing this, it is more of a form of liberation because of the way the culture is there. Versus here, it's not exactly the same, though it is very bad. It's always bad. Nobody needs to talk about who has it worse. Everybody has it bad. The question is, what is the root of all of this evil? A belief that gender, inherently being born a gender, dictates your future and how you should act. And that is made worse by patriarchy and capitalism. Because we live in a world where capitalism and patriarchy are married and white supremacy is all married. It means that the only way to make capital, the only way to be successful is to be as evil and even 100 times more evil than your white counterparts, your male counterparts, in order to even make it ahead, because they're not going to give you a chance. So then people of color and or women are put in positions where they have to be even more evil. And then what is that going to do for them? Now you've sold out your community. You've sold out everybody. It's like Jay-Z doing that interview where he said, oh, it's never come at the expense of anyone for me to become a billionaire. Absolutely it has. The audacity of Jay-Z to think he's never stepped on people's toes, thrown people under the bus, never had to exploit people in order to become a billionaire is a myth rich people tell themselves so they don't have to take accountability for the way they've participated in these systems. And because we live under white supremacy, Jay-Z will still be considered less than the white billionaires. So what good did it do him to sell out his community to become a billionaire where white people still see him as less? Nothing. Same with this lady here. What good is it going to do you to be a capitalist, to make a ton of money, to engage in a system that's never going to see you as equal, just to what? Be rich? Okay, what good is that? Like, what good is your money? You know what I mean? You don't need to be rich to be happy. You need to make just enough money. You don't need to engage in capitalism. You don't need to sell people out. You don't need to trick people into buying your product. You don't need to oversell your products, you know what I mean, to be successful. Okay. Let me see. Sorry, I feel like I'm missing a bunch of comments now. The commenter saying WLW has privilege under patriarchy is kind of irking me. It's because I'm going to show you a black lesbian in a second. It's because they just think about dating. Their fight for decentering men is so fucking superficial. It's only about sex. That's why I'm annoyed with everybody, because like decentering men is decentering patriarchy. It's not decentering men, the gender. It's not decentering sex with a man. It's about patriarchy. That's the point of it. So when you sit there and you try to take this like quote, what you think is radical, even though we've already done it before, stance, and you think not having sex with a man is radical in the US, girl, that's not radical to not have sex with a man in the US. Maybe in South Korea, but not in the US. And that's why your sense of what's radical has to make sense for the times. What was radical 50 years ago isn't going to be radical now in certain places. Okay. But the idea that lesbians have more privilege than straight women under patriarchy in a world where men rape lesbians to prove they're into men. Do you know what I'm saying? In a world where men chase lesbians to prove that they actually do want a man. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you talking about? In a world where men won't even hire lesbians because they see it as like competition. Like, come on, girls. The world is so homophobic, where people think gay people are going to literal hell. This administration possibly talking about taking away gay marriage, declaring two genders. Like, come on, please be serious. Okay. Please be serious. Like, it's all, again, we should not get into this, like fighting each other. We should focus on like, what is your plan? Because I'm not going to get into the capitalist bubble with you. I'm not doing that. I'm anti-capitalist through and through. We do not need to be teaching women how to be capitalists. You know what I mean? That's not going to help us. Okay. It's literally not going to help us. Yeah, the way Ethan and Gila would sell their cheap Teddy Fresh clothes for hundreds of dollars. Gila is a capitalist. What good? Ethan used to say all the time, I'm a capitalist. What good did that do them? That's why they're willing to throw people under the bus, because that's what capitalism teaches you to do. It teaches you to throw people under the bus. Okay. So no, it's not good. Okay. Now let me see. Let me look at this. Let me do this. First, I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and then I'm going to show you a black lesbian that I think makes a great point. And she's young too, which is, but there's a reason why she's young and she knows better than other people. And this coincides with this. First, I'm going to show you this TikTok. This is important.
More than 20% of best-selling women's fiction and nonfiction Quote, men buy fewer than 20% of best-selling women's fiction and nonfiction, while women read men and women equally. As author Soraya Shamali points out, we experience the consequences of this as women's perspectives are written off as niche, as their knowledge and expertise is not equally sought out, acknowledged, or credited, and as boys and men repeatedly learn to listen to men as authorities and seek out men for expertise in a way that not only overlooks and erases the contributions and authority of women, particularly those already most marginalized women, but also reinforcing broader cultural ideals that women's experiences are not worth listening to or caring about or learning from. And the consequences of that total lack of interest in women's experience shows up in everything from men legislating reproductive health care with no understanding of women's anatomy to women's daily exhaustion in their households, where they're left carrying so much of the unpaid physical, emotional, and mental labor. The author of this book, All We Want Is Everything: How We Dismantle Male Supremacy.
Okay, I don't know about the book because I haven't read it, but you know what this reminds me of? Is this idea that I think a lot of straight women talk about decentering men without reading from other women who are like queer or people of color. Like, this is important. Like, Black women in particular, Black queer activist, environmentalist women who care about the environment, care about children, they're not going to be capitalist. They're going to be centered on children. You can't center your life on children if you're a capitalist. Even though I believe Julia is a mother, if I'm not mistaken, the dilemma with her saying women should be capitalist because of patriarchy is as if to say women should not care about the environment because of capitalism, right? But we should care about the environment. And that's the thing. Capitalists take advantage. Capitalists will rape the earth. That's why they say that, because it's inherently patriarchal to be a capitalist. They rape the earth. That's why they say that. So it can get through to your head. Capitalists will destroy ecosystems. They will destroy villages. They will take food out of the mouth of babies in order to build centers. They're literally doing it right now all over America or the US, let alone globally. So for her to say, you know, the global majority, or for her to say like, you know, oh, I care about people. You are taking the food from villages all over the world to engage in, build in, and invest in businesses that are exploiting those farmlands, right? So like, it's very interesting, the disconnect from capitalism, patriarchy, and racism. I'm telling you, these are the the trifecta, okay? So here is this TikTok. There's two TikToks I want to show you. I put her on 1.2. I watched this over my breakfast today, and I just thought like, this is the conversation I'm waiting to have, but I think it's important. Here we go.
About like how married women are often women that are married to men are often centered in the conversation around like decentering men, and oftentimes it's kind of goes along with this like implicit or like this kind of like implied assumption that like that it's like wrong and it doesn't make any sense because they're somehow less credible for like having a male partner to begin with. And Evie Edit is actually one of my mutuals, and she's like involved in the situation, like kind of. And I just wanted to kind of discuss some of the things that I think have created this mindset and why I think it's like honestly kind of conservative, and I think it falls in like a really
pause before she makes these amazing points. Can I just say, YV Edit, Lisa, Evie Edit, I think those are all the same person. I think we're all calling, this is why usernames are so difficult, because we don't know how to pronounce them. So I don't know if it's Evie Edit, YV Edit, if it's Lisa, if it's Yvette, I don't know what it is, but I know we all keep calling her different things, but I think it's all the same woman we are talking about. So just keep that in mind.
Weird area of like the kind of feminism that just doesn't do anything for me personally. Like, it's like, obviously it's not gonna do anything for me because I'm a lesbian. Men were never an option to begin with. But like, I mean, like in the sense of like, I find it difficult to like work with and even like really like talk to feminists like this, because it's just like, we're really not approaching this in the same way. One thing I really like about Evie Edit is that like, she did such a great breakdown of like how decentering men as a partnered woman is oftentimes like much more palatable, because it's like it seems like it gives you like more of an option besides like just like cutting off romantic and like sexual and like interactions for the rest of your life. It's like, yeah, of course it's gonna be more palatable because it's less radical, and people often like in radical, obviously not being an insult, she said that, but like it's like obviously we know Americans particularly have to be dragged into the future. Like, it's like we are not a people like overall that are
exactly the US. It's like we have to pull them kicking and screaming into something better for them, you know, just to even mention, you know, universal healthcare or the government actually helping your kids in education. There's like, no, it's like, Jesus, let me help you, bro.
Interested in progress. Like, it's like almost every single social movement that's ever existed in this country has been deeply unpopular. That's like the first thing. The second thing is I luckily chose to be a lesbian. And the author.
And just a reminder that white women were absolutely there to picket the very first little black girl to ever come into a non-segregated school or desegregated school. Remember the infamous picture of those white women, okay? Ruby Bridges, is that her name? Protesting Ruby Bridges, okay, as she went to school for the very first time. So do not get it twisted that this whole, like, you know what I mean? Let's all be together. Excuse me. Oh my God. Let's all be together. Let's build a movement. Like, white women got a lot of work to do. Okay. So we have to be very careful about this assumption that this isn't playing a role. But I think it's interesting that 4B Forever was criticizing them for being white and also is on someone's page talking about how we should be capitalists. Hello? They're all the same thing. It's all the same thing, girls. Okay. Just to make it clear, I know it's hard because we're all I get it. I've been there too. Okay. But capitalism, racism, patriarchy. Capitalism, racism, patriarchy. Okay? They literally work together to destroy the whole planet Earth. Everything that we have, every chance of us growing is constantly being destroyed by these three things that is being uplifted by women and men. So yes, if women want to continue forward, then they also have to continue by dismantling and deconstructing their attachment to capitalism, because it absolutely is related to patriarchy. You cannot say, let's fight patriarchy by being capitalist. You can't do that. You have to get rid of all of them. But I understand the intuition, because I used to think, I was in my 20s and I remember, Ariana Grande's 7 Rings. I want it. I bought it. I was like in my full capitalist, like, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to be so fucking rich. I'm going to make $20 million and I'm just going to care about money and I'm going to get rich. They're trying to keep me poor. I'm not going to be poor. I'm going to be rich. And then you realize, like, ew, that wasn't the answer either, because I couldn't manage to make money without it coming at the expense of my ethics. Because ew. Okay? Like, no.
Talking about Adrienne Rich and how she was like reheating those nachos of like tying together lesbianism and feminism, and about how like one of the reasons why lesbians advocate so strongly against like lesbian or political lesbianism is because it so clearly and so often is reducing lesbians as like almost like a.
Hold on, in case you don't know this. So the reason people often credit lesbians for being we often say, like, why L is the first in the LGBT, because of the way lesbian communities came together to care for gay men during the AIDS epidemic. Oh. Oh. So as queer people, like, when we're having this conversation, we have gay brothers, gay cousins, like, we have men in our lives that aren't like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so important. Like, there's gay trans men, there's straight trans men. There's like this idea of like, what is a man? What is gender? Like, here we are performing, here we are integrating, here we are trying to just be us. And then there's a group of people on the internet that are totally neglecting the minority struggle, people dying of AIDS, whole communities of men dying because you're trying to fight patriarchy. Yes, gay men suffer from patriarchy. Yes, gay men can be misogynistic. And it requires all of us to do the work to dismantle those systems and deconstruct them from our consciousness, our understanding of our place in the universe, right? To come together and build something more beautiful, because we've already done this. Our elders have already fought this fight. Our elders already tried this radical decenter men, but like in a negative, misandrist way. Like, that doesn't work. And I know you're doing it for the first time yourself, so you don't know the queer history. But what our elders found, what we found as millennials, is the best way for our communities to come together is to question gender as a whole. Like, to question the performance of gender and to say to ourselves, can we not have a world where we decentered gender even as a concept in order to free people to be any gender, right? Any performance of gender, because we don't want to be TERFs. We don't want to be people who reject people because they were assigned something at birth. We don't believe in the belief that men are inherently evil or babies are inherently evil because they were born or assigned male at birth, you know? So, you know, I take a Judith Butler kind of similar stance to this, that gender deconstruction, to be a gender deconstructionist is to say that gender is a performance, not a biological reality. Even though we're all experiencing a biological reality, that these things are different and there's nuance here. It's not to say lesbians don't exist because gender's a construct. Just to say Black people don't exist because race is a construct. Like, both exist and there's a construct to it, right? So you know, the construct is built off patriarchy and homophobia and transphobia and racism. The construct of whiteness was created to be more racist. The construct of heterosexuality is protected to be so we can be transphobic and homophobic, right? So there's just so much here that I think people are missing because they're not understanding, like, you did not just pop into existence. Communities have been struggling to fight for this for a very long time. You know what I mean? Yes, Discord, Ruby Bridges is still alive and she has a TikTok page. Actually true. That little girl is still alive. And we have to assume some of those white women are probably a little bit older, but probably still very alive. The same ones who for the rest of their life have to remember that they picketed the right for a little girl to go to school because she was Black.
Vehicle for social change instead of like interacting with us as fucking people. And it's like just really dehumanizing. But on top of that, it like says that sex with women is, or it comes along with the idea that sex with women is inherently subversive and feminist, and sex with men is inherently like going along with the status quo and inherently anti-feminist, which again, I think operates in an extremely conservative framework of the fact of like women having the ability to give or withhold sex with men. And that is just not how I understand sex to exist. I don't think it's possible for me to withhold sex from anyone because you weren't owed that in the first place. Like that doesn't make any sense to me because it's like, whatever. We can talk about the next. Like when you know the history of like why.
Think about that. That's a new way of having a conversation about withholding sex. Like, this is a very like progressive, very leftist, very like nuanced perspective that is so the right direction. You can't withhold sex. It was never for you. That's what I'm saying. You're born single. You're born yourself. Identifying and radically or saying your radical statement is being single makes no sense. You as a baby were never supposed to come into a universe that told you had to be partnered. That's what we need to dismantle is the idea that you should be partnered. So you can choose if you want to be partnered. You know what I'm saying? It's not that you should even have sex. I think making fun of 40-year-old virgins is cringe. Stop making fun of people for being virgins. And virginity is a construct of purity. Nobody's even a virgin. There's no such thing as a virgin. That word is created as a construct of purity by patriarchy. So this idea that like, oh, I've never had sex, you might as well slut shame women for having lots of sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to understand why you're coming to the conclusions you do, right? Chat said, did Obama play under the white supremacist world? Yes. 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 I don't know what that means, right? Like you can engage and you can ask more, but yeah, definitely.
Why lesbians found it so critical to like tie their lesbianism with their feminism, it makes a lot more sense as to like why so many people still have this idea and somehow still tie together that being a lesbian is the most feminist thing you can do. And it's because, again, lesbians of the past or feminists of the past were so fucking homophobic, and they were continually ejecting like lesbians from their spaces, and it was difficult for people that were lesbians to literally exist in some of the spaces because of how like violently homophobic these straight feminists were. And then on top of that, like how many feminists were kind of being like used and strung along as like a means of someone's like personal and political actualization. Again, a deeply dehumanizing process that like we are kind of trying to fight against, but it's like difficult because people inherently tie together, again, like subversive sex with feminism. And Nia actually made a video about how like the 4B movement in South Korea looks the way that it does because of the social conditions of South Korea, and those are extremely different from the ones in the United States. And so it's like difficult for us to try to like copy and paste something and have it still make sense like in a different cultural context. Like South Korea being such a conservative country, it's like, yeah, like I think a lot of women have an understanding of feminism in South Korea as like, I'm withholding a baby, I'm withholding sex, I'm withholding love, I'm withholding marriage. It's like, and that is a like, I think pretty like accepted convention of like, this is something that you have been taught your entire life. This is like this is the point for you being alive. It's like people have been pressuring women to have babies, I think for like the past like 20-ish years in South Korea, and they're just like, no, because like they don't want to. And I think it can work and it can do
There's a woman we have a family friend who's in her, gosh, how is she now? She is a capitalist. She has made a lot of money, millions, and she's very successful, was single until she was in her 40s and then got married and never had kids, never wanted kids. And to this day, my parents always wonder, like, do you think she would have been happier if she had kids? And I'm like, what does a girl have to do? This woman is like nearing 80. And like, she is so, you know what I'm saying? Like, she did what she wanted. She never wanted kids, so she never had kids. But the fact that people are so questioning whether or not she would have been happier with kids is like, it's like, what does a woman have to do out here? So you have to remember, like, it's not radical to do what you want, but it is radical to live joyfully. But it's not always radical because it's about the why. Are you doing it knowing you could die for it? Maybe radical. Are you doing it because you're selfish and you don't give a fuck about anyone else? Not radical, right? So the question is, why are you doing what you're doing? And that's really what this is about. Like, are you the 4B forever girl and you're like not engaging with men? But if she's a lesbian, I don't know. Chat was saying she's a bisexual. Chat was saying she's a lesbian. Chat was saying all kinds of things. I don't know what she is because she doesn't, I guess like in the content I've seen of her, in the content we've been watching all week, she's not telling us about herself. So the dilemma is like, what perspective are you coming from? Where does this ideology stem? How'd you come to this conclusion? How are you living your own life? Like, I don't know what you're doing. And because I don't know what you're doing, I don't know how to judge it. And yes, it changes things. Some people are like, what does it matter? Does it matter? Yeah. Because we are informed by our limited perception and understanding of our place in the universe. Like, you don't have original thoughts. You only have the ability to deconstruct and review the thoughts you've been given, and then to see if you can form new ideas from thoughts you've been given. You've been raised in an environment that has been telling you how to think your whole life. All of us suffer from this. So we have to ask ourselves, oh, why do I do this? Like, why? Like, just to ask yourself, why do I like this juice over this juice? And then to realize you probably like this juice because it's the one your mom gave you as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, that's why this is a very layered.
Do a lot of like, it can do a lot, and I think everything is producing a lot, specifically because like the Korean people, like the country itself is like literally declining population. Like, it's like people are talking about how in a couple generations it's like, are they going to even exist anymore? Because women are just like, no, like we don't want to keep procreating and creating more people that are going to like keep oppressing us, especially because of how poorly and like how little support like new mothers have in South Korea to begin with. But it's like, I don't think that we're as conservative of a nation, which I think is, I know it's crazy to say, but I don't think that we are as conservative as South Korea. And so like, I think that like taking and applying something that exists so specifically and was born so specifically in such a like conservative framework, I think like it carries along with that all of the things.
It would be what I think about it is like, if I was in Afghanistan, not wearing the burqa would be liberating. In America, not wearing the burqa is not liberating. If anything, wearing the burqa would be more liberating because it's a choice. But like wearing the burqa in Afghanistan, you know what I'm saying? There's a difference. That's why, like, I think if men never existed, women would have created the burqa. Like, women would have created a hijab. Women would have created, you know what I mean? Like, I think the way men have weaponized it in Afghanistan against women is different. And that's why it'd be liberating if they took it off. The way women would have absolutely, and you think women don't want to wear pretty things on their heads? You think women don't want to, you don't want to have social anxiety and maybe want to go to a Walmart without having the whole world notice them? You know what I'm saying? You ever want to go to Walmart and just wear a burqa? I do. Sometimes I just want to put a whole thing over my head and be like, don't look at me. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I do. Even though I know you're looking at me, you can't see me. So it's like an armor. You know what I mean? But it's the way that men and patriarchy specifically has corrupted anything that we ever do, including makeup. Look, we can't even wear makeup without it being a man thing. Girl, we can't wear high heels now. You know what I mean? Like, so we have to deconstruct it. Why do I wear makeup? Like, why don't I wear makeup? Like, someone the other day, which is fine, they were like kind of praising me for having a bare face, but like, I don't want to be praised for not wearing foundation. I don't want to be praised for going gray. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be praised for something that was easy. Like, it's easier for me not to wear foundation. What do I care? It's easier for me to maybe go gray one day if I do. Like, whatever I do, like, you can give me social credit for the things I tell you are a struggle. You know what I'm saying? But I've already gone through that stage of like, do I have to wear makeup? Should I wear makeup? Does makeup define me? Da, 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 da. I've already done that. You know, you have to figure that out too. Same thing with my body. You will never make me feel bad about how my body looks. I've already done so much work. I'm decades into deconstructing the sense of like what my body looks like. I could walk naked down the street right now and feel confident whatever my body looks like. I've already done the work. Not everyone is there. Some people aren't even at the stage where they cannot wear hoodies. Like there are some people in the world who hate their body so much right now, they have to wear a hoodie every day, which I love a hoodie. But everyone's at a different stage of it is what I'm saying. And so I'm compassionate in that regard. But you have to remember that just because you're not there yet doesn't mean some of us aren't. And just because you think you are there doesn't mean you are. Because there are a lot of women, myself included in the past, who was like, oh, I've deconstructed the patriarchy. I'm deconstructing. I totally got it. But I wasn't even where I was now. Right. So it takes a while because you have to decenter not only the men you're dating and the men you work with and the men you're related to and the men you have to deconstruct patriarchy as a system. The system. You do have to know the difference between systems and people. You have to know the difference.
That come with a very deeply conservative culture. And again, it's that understanding of sex is something that you can give and withhold. And it's like, or marriage is something that you can give and withhold. It's like, no. I just do not believe that is how sex functions, because I don't believe that sex is something that I give to someone or something that like I give up or something that like, you know, like it's like the sex that I have is sex that I want to have because I want to have it. That was a manly bird. And then lastly is like the idea of like the like sex with men or marriage with men being something that is defining and like whether or not you center or decenter men. It's like
sometimes the way the 4B girl sounds to me, she's just like, you want a woman who wants to have sex, not to have it because you don't want the man to come. And that's just not how I think about sex. Like, forgive me for being so old school, but it's kind of about making love, connection with a human being. You know, kissing somebody and feeling their breath on your skin, and regardless of gender, experiencing a moment of intimacy that might not even lead to penetration, right? Like sex is all things and none of the things. And it's not even about sex. So yeah, if you're women who are having sex with men to prove something, that's you not deconstructing patriarchy. But that kind of feels like the same thing to me to say, I want to have sex with a man, even if I wanted to, because I'll never give in to a man. Man, girls, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's still, you're doing the thing. You're still engaging with language that says like, you're engaging in this like weird, you know, or the same thing with gold star lesbians. I'm a gold star lesbian. I've never had a penis. Okay. What does that have to do with anything? You know, like deconstruct why you think that thing matters. Why do you think that's a good thing? Right.
There are many lesbians that center men so wholly and completely in their lives that you're like, what the fuck is your problem?
Yes.
Like that is also,
have I not talked about this 1,000 times?
one of the reasons why this is so strange to me, because it's like you can be a male-centered lesbian without ever touching, fucking, like being with them, without ever marrying one, without ever dating one. It's like you do not have to have sex with men to be male-centered. Like we see that especially with the fact that straight male culture is like man-loving, homo, like I don't know if homoerotic is like the exact word I'm looking for. I think that people use the word like homosocial. It's like straight men are male-centered, and it's not because they're fucking men. It's often because they are men, but also on top of that, because like they benefit from like centering other men in their lives socially. And it's just like, it's like, I don't really understand like why the like defining characteristic of being male-centered is just not dating them, because it's like, that like in my opinion, that does not really affect like what your perspectives are about sex and sexuality.
And that's why I say it's about decentering patriarchy, because a lot of these lesbians that are busy trying to prove it to the boys are suffering from patriarchy. I had a lot of internalized misogyny growing up, or a lot of internalized like patriarchal beliefs about myself. And I used to, and it also helps or doesn't help that I'm on like a gender deconstruction journey, but I used to really battle with myself. Drew Afawalo talks about this in her book Loud, but like it's really hard not to realize like pick-me-ism is a meme mostly, but if you actually look at what it is for real, it's the suffering of the woman under patriarchy internalizing a belief about herself that she's less than. It's actually devastating. And when you realize that's what it is, you can deconstruct. You're not deconstructing men or decentering men. You're deconstructing patriarchy. You're decentering patriarchy. Because patriarchy is what built into your mind that you were inherently less than by simply being born a woman, or that you were inherently better because you were born a man. That is a patriarchal belief.
On top of that, it's like one of the reasons why people start acting fucking crazy when they get in relationships with men is often because of the fact that like they're finally being picked, and so it's like they no longer, it's like this individual solution no longer works for them, and so that's why so many people are so like It's one of the, I think it's one of the reasons why TERFs they go so quiet when they get a boyfriend. Oh my gosh. Or like the rad femmes get so quiet when they have a boyfriend, because like they have now found an individual solution to their very individual problem, which was that men individually.
And by the way, I think this is what people were trying to accuse me of in my video. They're like, you found a solution for your personal life, but it doesn't impact us. I know, Habibis, but that's why you always go introspection, extrospection. Yes. I have figured out something for my life, which you can all figure out for your own life. That doesn't mean if we all figured out for our own lives that patriarchy would be dismantled if it's still being upheld by people who haven't figured it out. Yes, if we all figured it out, but because we're not all figuring it out, the world is a reflection of us as a whole. So yes, I suggest that in your personal life, you liberate yourself from patriarchy, because imagine if you did that, and if everyone did that, then we wouldn't have a need for patriarchy, because we would see it as outdated and stupid, no matter our gender. But because you still think of yourself in relation to patriarchy at all times, right? It's not to say that you should be strategic. It's to say that Brittany, right? Like it's the same thing with like I don't want gay kids to learn who they are through bigoted Christians. I don't want gay kids to grow up in an environment where they think they are gross because they were born gay, or evil because they were born gay. And it's like you're saying to me, but they should know that they're evil because that's how people see them. No, they should be taught that some people in the world think they're evil because those people are struggling, but what those people think about you doesn't matter. And because those people exist, you might be hate crimed. And because you might be hate crimed, I want to protect you to the best of my ability. It's just like when you have black children and you have to explain to them about police, and racism, but you wouldn't want your black child to inherently or to internalize white supremacy into them and think that they are less than because of it, even though they will naturally, as our gay kids will naturally, as our trans kids will naturally, as any of our kids will naturally, our chubby kids will naturally, they will be impacted by their environment. That's why as parents, you have to be very careful about bringing a baby into the universe, because you basically are saying, I cannot protect you from the world. I can only prepare you for it. You can't protect your babies from the world. You literally, that's what I'm saying. So liberate give your children a safe space to come home where they feel, here I feel liberated, here I feel safe, and then prepare them to be the next adults in the universe and in the world, and have them, contend with the reality of what we all have to fight against, right?
Treat them very poorly, because the entire point is that it's not the 4B movement is not asking anything of men. It's trying to, so you know what all this sounds like to me when you put it all together, and just ignore that. That's the cat. I can't stop him. He just does what he wants. But putting that all together, having an anti-sex movement being framed as radical and subversive, but then a culturally conservative context, you know what all that is? Second wave feminism. This is this is the feminist sex wars, or this is, we did this already.
We already did this, girls. We literally already did this
50 years ago. It's I cannot stand.
But we repeat cycles. See how I'm saying? Because you don't know your history, you repeat it. You think, oh no, I'll do it this time. I'll do it better. We already did it.
People who just don't know what they're talking about, and sorry being pretentious, I don't mean to be, but I am. It's just if you don't know what you're talking about, it just irritates the fuck out of me to hear people being this is something new and different, and you don't understand it. It's because it didn't work. And it's the reason why feminism evolved past this was because it didn't work. And this is why it's so important to read what comes before you. It's just if you don't know what people did before you, then you're bound to repeat it over and over and over again. And when I remember the YouTube video, I'm going to tag it, but they had whoever it was had this amazing metaphor of the writers that don't read. And so then what they think that they're because they don't want to, taint their mind or whatever with other people's ideas. They want to be able to come up with their own things and be creative in their own way. And it's what they end up doing over and over and over and over and over again is reproducing shit that already exists, and then being I'm being new and different. And it's actually, if you read what came before you, you would know that someone did this 10, 20, 40, 50, 100 years ago. And it's just because you're not acknowledging what happened before you doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's the exact analogy that they use is that it's if you came up with the idea of a wheel from scratch in 2026, it would be kind of impressive, but it's that doesn't mean it wouldn't be groundbreaking because the wheel's already been invented. It's no matter how impressive or groundbreaking you think you're being, if you don't know what came before you, then you don't know what you're repeating, and you're often always repeating something. And again, it's you have every single right, or I might have cut this at some point, but you have every single right to not want to have a man in your bed. You have every single right to not want to marry one, to not want to interact with one, to not want to build a life with one. But to act like the thing that makes you a feminist is by not fucking men, I don't think that's true at all, because you're not doing anything. And I feel feminism requires action, and also on top of that, you're doing something that already didn't work. Now what?
Exactly. Okay, everything about this video, and I want you to watch part 2, but look at this video, okay? Watch this.
No matter what the color of the man is, no matter the age, the length, the width. Men are raping, men are violating, men are the ones who are taking control over women's bodies. Stop hiding behind legal jargon. Stop hiding behind your pretended care for women. Just stop it. Because this is very simple, straight to the point legislation. We are just asking that only yes means yes. The lack of it, therefore, means no. The lack of it, therefore, is a rape. No matter what the color of the man is, no matter the age, the length, the width. Men are raping, men are violating, men are the ones who are taking control over women's bodies. If you don't believe me, ask the 62 million viewers who watched wives and girlfriends being drugged and raped and streamed online. Ask them. We as Women Collective, we are tired of your racism, of your sexism, of your lack of responsibility. We are tired of you. Just take responsibility for once.
Thank you.
If you cannot say that only yes means yes, then you have chosen sides of the rapist.
So there's legislation that's being pushed to basically make it so rape is redefined, okay? Redefined as like, if you don't get a yes, it's rape basically. And for all those people who are terrified of this, it's because you haven't even begun to learn about informed consent. I am a big fan of informed consent for this reason, because again, same thing with moving countries. A lot of people, for some reason, the criticism of both me and Mel Hamlet, which was interesting. It was like, oh, we moved countries to be with our spouses. Mel already moved to that country before. Okay, was independent, whatever. I also didn't move to be with my partner. My partner and I as a team made a decision, right? So when you rewrite women's histories and you tell women what they did and you don't listen to us, and we might listen, maybe we're wrong. Some of us are wrong about our own stories, right? That's a part of learning and humility is like, oh, damn, I was wrong about my own story. How crazy is that? And yet we are wrong about our own story, and it's only good if we correct it. It's not good if we make fun of, right? So it's like the way people are going and attacking Meg Thee Stallion right now. Like, oh, you should have known better. He's an NBA player. You should have known better. Like, again, everybody should know better. Nobody knows better. And also, why are we victim blaming? Like, the woman was cheated on, right? Like, this idea that like this man had the audacity to bring her around family, to integrate her into his life, to allow her to post content, and then to cheat on her, that's on him, right? That's not on Megan for wanting to believe, right, that maybe he was no longer a cheater. Because at the same time, women will say all men are cheaters, never trust them. Men will say, I can't believe you say that about me. What do you mean all men are cheaters? It's like, so which one is it, right? So like the focus should be on, do we believe in restorative justice and rehabilitation? Do we believe people can get better? Do we believe that people can get better, but doesn't mean they have to integrate back into society? You know, can we live in a world where our little boys have a chance? Because at some point, I swear to God, you're on the verge of advocating for no male sons, you know, no boys who might be men, whatever that means. You don't even know. Like, that's the irony of gender. You don't even know if you're going to give birth to a son. So the irony of sitting here and talking about like boys or all men are this and this, you're missing the point. But I will say what's really important is that men is a system, which is what this woman is talking about. It is men doing the raping. It is men doing all these things. That doesn't take away that some women rape. It's to say that 90% plus of crimes of violence against men and people, women, all genders, are done by men. And that doesn't just happen because it happens because we're not having a deeper relationship with our biological experience. You know, when women were asked, if women are asked man or bear, women sat there and weighed the pros and cons of like, not whether or not they would be tortured. It was what were the probabilities of the torture? That's what it was. That was what was weighing in most of our brains. Even when I asked other men, like, would you want your little girl to be in a forest with a bear or a man? They were like, a bear. And I was like, why? And they're like, at least I know what the bear's going to do. You know, I don't know what the man's going to do. And that's it right there. But that's because, and I think conservative, this is the part that I really want to, I've made a commentary video on this. I really do think conservatives make predators. I do think not understanding what sex is makes predators. I do think like denying your ability to express yourself sexually makes predators. I think like I think we make boys into predators. I think it's conditioned into them. I think it's rarely purely like 100% guaranteed, right? That your kid will be a predator. I think it's more guaranteed that I think it's shown that it's really like a big part of it is how they're conditioned. Because same thing with this, like we have to tell men to get a yes. And they're like, and I'm like, why would getting a yes sound so hard for you? And it's because people move with fantasy first and consent second. Guys, consent first, fantasy second. It's why I always tell people the BDSM community was the first group of people that taught me that informed consent didn't ruin fantasy, that getting birth control and STI testing didn't take away the thrill of an orgasm, that BDSM didn't even have to involve sex at all, right? That, it's only like really damaged and really traumatized people that are still the majority of the world, engaging in very toxic cycles that are repeating. And I'm saying our niche communities have been figuring it out, and you're not listening to us because you can't separate the fact that these things can exist outside of corruption. Like queer communities, we've been experimenting, right? We have been experimenting with non-monogamy in a way that heterosexual people really struggle to engage with. It's not to say cheating doesn't exist. It's to say that we are more open about talking about it. Example, I was never upset if my partner talked about a woman he had sex with, because like, why would I be upset about that? Versus straight women are taught to be upset, to be jealous if a man even looks at another woman. And I'm saying it depends on why he looked at the woman. Instead of thinking that jealousy is a normal biological experience, they see it as like, this jealousy means something bad is happening. It means jealousy is happening, right? There's so many layers to this. Why is he looking at another woman? In which way is he engaging with this woman? What is he saying about this woman? What is he complimenting about this woman? What is a lot of people are really scummy. A lot of men are really, really scummy. And honestly, I'm all about you never marrying a man. I just want you to do it because it's actually what you want, and not because you're doing it out of fear, or you're not marrying a man because you think all men are gross. I want you to not marry a man because you're happy and joyful. Because I want you to decenter men. I don't want men to be the reason you made a decision. Do you know what I'm saying? I want you to just do it because it was the right decision. Okay, part 2. It's shorter, but just as good.
Because I was just like, now what? It's like, I think that if you live in like any other intersections, any other like marginalized identities, like I think there's already an understanding that like a certain type of separatism and segregation does not lend itself to good results, mainly because like the majority population, the people that are not marginalized, are often trying to find ways to subsume you no matter if they can see you or not. It's like one of the reasons why like separate but equal was kind of what.
Okay, wait, before she goes into this, Chet said the performance of jealousy in hetero relationship is so tiring. You guys see this recent trend on TikTok where the guy and the girl clap and they either like say a girl's name and he'll be like, Sarah. And then she stops and goes, who's Sarah? And I'm like, Jesus, you guys are exhausting. Are you not tired? And then the joke is the man is supposed to not say it's a green flag if he can't name any women. Woo! Exhausting.
Not, I was going to say kind of overturned. That was fucking crazy. One of the reasons why separate but equal was overturned was because like what kept happening over and over and over and over and over again is that like just because Black people were separating themselves and trying to build their own lives, like white people would go out of their way to terrorize Black communities, to go out of their way to burn down, like they burned down Black Wall Street. They flooded this city and they destroyed that city. Like the city that my great grandma and my great grandma were born in does not exist anymore. I think it's like under a lake. Like it's like is so bonkers to me to like see people trying to reproduce something that we already know does not work. My main issue, no matter what, is that like you cannot have like a belief system that exists within a conservative logic and then act like it's progressive and then act like it's doing.
And by the way, the response isn't then to be a woman who with your man objectifies women and goes, oh, I bet her pussy tastes good. Okay, girl, wrap it up. Absolutely not. Because I've also seen those women that are like, oh, I love looking at other women with men. And I always think about how their pussy tastes. And I'm like, oh, ooh. That grosses me out. Like, that's not what it's supposed to be either. Unicorn hunters. You know who I'm talking about. Unicorn hunters. Oh, we're looking for a third. We're looking for a unicorn. You know how many women I went on like OkCupid dates with only to find out they were looking for a girlfriend for the summer or a girlfriend to like be with their boyfriend? Also not the answer. Ew.
Anything to put us forward when it's literally putting us back. Like it's like you were literally thinking things that people thought 50 years ago, doing things people did 50 years ago, having conversations people had 50 years ago. And it's like, just because you're not acknowledging that does not mean that that's not what's happening. And on top of that, this is not like some big like let women date men. Like that's not what the fuck this is. It's that like when you start being conservative in one way, it is very easy to be conservative in another way. Like why do you think that so many rat?
Why do you think so many crunchy liberals that were known as left or liberals became conservatives? Because they started to become conservative when it came to engaging in modern living, and now they're anti-vax. I'm telling you right now, be very careful. Be very careful. Chad says, what the fuck is on your For You page? No, honey, that was my real life. No. Unicorn hunters, that was my real life. That wasn't the internet. That was my real fucking life. Grown women asking me to go on a date so they could introduce me to their boyfriend. That was my real fucking life. And I used to tell them, no, I'm gay. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not dating you so a man can watch us. I'm into women because I want to fall in love with a person who happens to be a girl. Like and that was the problem I would have when I was younger, but it wasn't because these women were bisexual. It was because they hadn't deconstructed the patriarchy. Because lesbians still fall into upholding the patriarchy by when they wanted to date me, being like, I'm the man. I hold the door open for you. I pay because I'm the man. You're not the man, girly. Unless you are a man, which I'm here for, but you're not the man. Because I don't need a relationship where the girl I'm dating is just like, I'm going to pay for things because that's like what the top does. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that either. I just want to be in a relationship where we value each other as people and not as roles, right? Even top and bottom and all these things, guys, they're not like set in stone roles. They're just like energy vibes, you know? Like, we're so consumed with like, what's your role? What's your label? What's your title? Bro, I'm in love. Mind your business. Like, let me just be with my partner. Mind your business.
And TERFs are like so anti-trans. They're like against like even the idea of like of sex workers. Like they're against like so many things that are like, you don't care about women in any serious sense. And that's why so many of them, when they get boyfriends, they go mute. They go fucking mute because it was individual for them to begin with. It was conservative for them to begin with. It was like a reaction about like not getting picked to begin with. And I want to make a reminder really quickly of like why I say this in the first place, of why I say it's conservative and like why I don't think it's helpful is because it's like, or like why I say it operates with a conservative logic is because it's like, I don't think it's possible in the United States to believe that like the 4B movement can be feminist unless you also believe that like sex is something that men are owed, therefore it's something that can be withheld.
Exactly.
Like I feel like those things have to go together. Like I don't think you can withhold something that you didn't already owe somebody. You know, like that, and that I feel like that is I think that that's the fundamental flaw in that particular like logic and thinking that it makes me just like I can't get with it. I can't get with it. I don't think it's possible to withhold sex from anyone. I don't think that's how it works. And I feel like that's how people are talking about it, as people frame it in their minds, and it's just like that I don't think makes any sense. And also, not to get like frou-frou frilly with it, not to be like disgusting and corny, but it's just like, this is I think the difference between politics based in love and politics based in hate. It's one of the reasons why it's like, I don't get along with people where it's like, I'm a feminist because I hate men. No, I'm a feminist because I love women. I love women from the bottom of my heart as a dyke and as a regular person. I love women. I love whatever. I don't care.
Exactly the difference between I'm mad at and I'm mad for the world. Don't be mad at the world. You'll become a school shooter. Be mad for the world. You'll feed people. Exactly. The reason I do everything I do is out of love and compassion and goodness. It's not because I'm angry in the wrong way. It's not because I'm bitter. It's not because I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. That's the point. Move with love, move with grace. Now, this is learned. It took me a long time to get here. So if you're not there right now, that's okay. But I am here now. I love children. I want to protect kids. I love babies. I love innocent people. I love animals. I want to start here. How do I protect people out of love?
Also, again, I love queer people. I love Black people. I love us. I love the cultures that I get to be a part of. Like, and I really enjoy them. It's one of the reasons why it's like, I will sometimes.
Hey, Chad, I see you repeating the same comment, even though it's already been covered like 5 times during stream. So I don't know if you're just late to it, but even she has said multiple times mentioning South Korea. That's what she's talking about right now. So I know you keep bringing it up. You said, I'm sorry if this has been covered, but we should keep in mind that the origins of 4B and the context, that's exactly what she's talking about right now. That's exactly what we're watching. That's exactly what we've been covering for 30 minutes on stream. That's exactly what she's saying. She's saying there's the difference between it being radical for South Koreans and the differences for it being reductive for US citizens. That's exactly what she's saying right now.
Sometimes a lot of people out on here, but it's like, I also like don't feel a particular need to be like, yeah, like I have a problem with coons, I have a problem with picnic girls, I have a problem with like, like the straight center gay people, because it's just like, well, yeah, duh. But like, what I'm advocating for usually is something that is for another person versus like against something else. It's like, that to me, I think is not, I'm not gonna say that's not particularly useful. I just don't agree with it. I don't even understand like how women in relationships with men end up as a topic of conversation in like these spaces so often. I think, again, because it has to come with an underlying resentment of other women that is being enacted in a way that like feels like, you know, like progressive and powerful, in a way that feels like it's justified and righteous. I don't think a lot of this content would exist the way that it does if it didn't rely on, like, again, conservative logic, and then number two, a deep resentment of other women and wanting to find a way to separate yourself from them. Because it's like, I'm different than you. I wouldn't do what you're doing. But it's just like, that is not, to me, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like that.
Okay, so, and then, first of all, I'm going to like this, and then I'm going to share her TikTok in the chat. Okay, exactly why this statement of saying, like, women need to be good capitalists in order to fight patriarchy is bullshit. But then, watch this video, okay? Look at this from Julia, right? So, Julia is a capitalist decenter woman. Which I deeply, deeply disagree with. Okay, but listen to her thoughts on like everything happening, and listen to the words she uses and the way she, in my mind, well, just listen to it. Just listen to it.
Weight from somebody. Would you learn to lose weight from somebody who's still overweight? Would you want to learn to build a business from somebody who still relies on their 9-to-5 as a crutch? Would you take anti-racism classes from someone protected and is benefiting from their racist community? Then why do you uphold dissenter men, women who are married, and celebrate them like the best discovery since humans learned to control fire? I'm a woman and a mother who has been dissentering men for over a decade. I actually know what it takes because I've been living it every single day for the last 14 years. It saddens me to see how gullible and wounded women are. The same prey mindset that had women accepting a slave-like role in a relationship with men is the same mindset that gets sucked into this cult led by women who preach anti-patriarchy while still being protected by the system they claim to reject. Financially, in their household earning, insurance, future planning, it's much easier to get a loan on a mortgage. And there's always the safety that if you should get laid off or something happens to you, then your husband will cover it, even for working women. Although many of these dissenter men type of women influencers who are married didn't have a significant career before doing this activism work. Then there's a social aspect. People accept you more. It's easier to have friends. Your neighbors see you as normal. Your family members love you, and then the internet loves you too. These women do not have to live the downside of dissentering men. They're fully protected and are benefiting from the patriarchy. No matter what those women claim, marriage is patriarchal. As girls, we start minimized and infantilized.
I think it's interesting that she's saying marriage is patriarchal, but capitalism isn't. Why is she telling women to be capitalist if that isn't also patriarchal? Do you know what I mean? Like, isn't that so interesting that she can't figure that out? I mean, I get it, but like, geez.
Married women continue on that pathway as there are no social benefits for them to develop out of that. There are significant aspects of married women that do not mature into leaders. I'm not saying there's a right way or the wrong way to live as a woman. While being single or divorced does not automatically make a woman dissentering man, also isn't possible to be married and with full honesty, be the leader in the dissentering men movement. When a woman has actually dissentered men, it is very difficult to make this topic sensationalized. It's the same way which you cannot become a history expert after watching decades of Fox News. When you've actually lived it, you have to say no to the benefits of the patriarchy, even when that would have been the easy way. That is the path of least resistance, and the easiest thing that a woman can get is a man. I started by dissentering my father 23 years ago when it was not sensationalized or even a topic. Terminology on social media, in fact, there was no social media back then. It took me time to dissenter my brother, and as a heterosexual woman, my dating interests. In this process, I've seen plenty of feminists chicken out the moment I asked them to put it into action. They love to talk, but not ready to give up the benefits in the patriarchy. I'm very quick to throw women under the bus when the moment came. Ask me anything in the comments, I'll
Girl, didn't you just do that in this TikTok? And also, why are you talking about teaching women how to decenter men by being capitalists? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. When we have these conversations, it's all connected. And the question is, do you know that? So, okay, here's this. Look.
You are putting yourself in danger. The only way to truly dissenter men is to stop talking about them and become an excellent capitalist. The areas of concern should be legacy planning, financial literacy.
Okay, I understand and I agree, by the way, that you have to decenter your father and the patriarchy and men, because especially if you're an immigrant firstborn daughter, a lot is on your shoulders, right? They put a lot of it on you, and you have to be like, no. Doesn't mean you abandon your family. It doesn't mean you abandon people. It means you put down boundaries. I'm open with boundaries, as we say on this channel, right?
As well as career trajectory planning, becoming significant in your industry. You cannot have any power without being an excellent capitalist. And being a woman, especially a woman of the global majority, just having money will not get rid of the pains of systemic oppression.
True.
When you discern the status quo, you are putting yourself in danger. Money is an important layer of protection, not only having it, but being very good at managing it, which means you have to be able to read into people's character and scams. These male-centered married women, decenter men influencers remind me of the MLM Christian patriarchal white women like Rachel Hollis. Women are being influenced while being short-sighted and making huge life-altering decisions without understanding the consequences of what they're about to face. I came across a video of a woman who claimed she left her husband because one of these married woman dissenter men influencers convinced her. When women don't understand male nature, it's because they...
Male nature is a turf talking point. See, when I hear male nature, I just know you're a turf, bro. Why would you say male nature? Like what what is that? What is that? What is that?
Lack understanding in power dynamics. Patriarchy is only one power dynamic. If you don't understand
And if you say female nature, I know you're a misogynist. Why would you say that?
capitalism, which is the main law of power, then you will always be lost, and no matter what you do, you will never gain power. Also, until you really understand capitalism, financial literacy, business, and sales, you will never truly understand human nature, which means that you're gonna be continuously scammed and leveraged.
Capitalism is a scam, Habibi. Understanding human nature to scam them in capitalism is why capitalism sucks. Capitalism requires you to scam people to make money. That's why it's shitty. Corporations are scamming us out of our fucking life savings, out of our retirement, out of our legacies, out of everything. Legacy, I don't even believe in, by the way. We should deconstruct that. Legacy is actually a patriarchal term. It's funny that she cares about legacy because that is patriarchy. But okay, like capitalism is the scam.
Without making much traction on your own. No matter what you do, you'll always be oppressed and without options. Some of you are talking about having a matriarchy, and you think that this starts with you not having any hierarchy. We live in a hierarchical structure. You cannot suddenly get rid of hierarchy. What a matriarchy actually looks like in a family setting is that the woman has to be the resource controller. And usually that means she has to be the main provider as well. She has to be the one who makes decisions when it comes to how to allocate the resources. Then, in a typical family setting, the children are the center. To understand how this works, look up child-centered education and parenting. It is extremely difficult to execute in a capitalist, patriarchal, and racist society. However, I have achieved something that is fairly matriarchal in my family, as much as we can do. Now, why don't I talk about all of this on social media? Is because when something is real, which requires to go against the system, it is fragile. When somebody is actually making a difference and living those values, you will often not hear from them. That's because performance becomes really difficult when you're implementing. The less you know, the louder and more absolute you can be.
Every single one of these people say some of the right things and a lot of the wrong things. And you know, it's very confusing, I think, to kind of figure out, like, why are you coming to this specific conclusion? Why is this your decision? And like, why is this the way it's being expressed? And it reminds me a little bit about, you know, how long we have to go. You know, those women that are like, oh my God, I'm so pro-gay, I'm pro-trans. You know, my boyfriend isn't, he voted for Trump, but I'm a super big liberal. It's like, then you're like, no, like I hear you, which is why we have to decenter our parents and the world we come from and our fathers and our brothers. Because if you grew up in a conservative family and you center your family and your family is bigoted, then you're centering bigotry in your life. You need to decenter your bigoted family, decenter your father and the patriarch, and decenter, right? These structures, these hierarchical structures, in order to go off and build a new life for your family or your life, your particular life. Because I also think the word legacy insinuates childbearing. Like, oh, if I was to have a legacy, would that mean I have to have children? What if my legacy is that you won't remember me because I'm vibing? You know what I mean? Am I not allowed to vibe? You know? So even in my family growing up as Syrian, like there is a hierarchical structure. It is patriarchal, which means like if my grandpa was talking, everybody would be quiet. Even his children who were grown, if he was like, don't talk, they'd be like, it's not like they're going to argue against their dad because he's the elder and he's the adult, versus the way that I've done things now, the way that I have a relationship with my parents, bringing it back full circle to the beginning of stream, is I tell my parents, like I haven't spoken to them since November, and I say, hey, I love you. My phone is always available. You can always call me when you're ready to have serious conversations about the problems in this family. Until then, I love you and I wish you well. I'll see you eventually, maybe at your funeral. Because all of my life, I was fighting for begging them to just see what I was trying to say, to beg them, you know? And they couldn't, and they weren't willing to, because then they would have to deconstruct their own religion, their own relationship to patriarchy, their own relationship to bigotry. And they're not going to do that in this lifetime. And if my parents aren't going to do it, why am I holding my breath for strangers around the planet? It's so silly, right? So I'm not holding my breath for any of you to figure it out, but I'm still going to do the right thing no matter what. I'm still going to move through love and compassion, and I'm still going to show up and say, I changed my life, and that's what I can, you know, that's what I think you can do. But it's not going to change the world overnight. We have thousands of more years of patriarchy, realistically. So even this woman, Julia, saying, like, I think that's her name, saying like, oh, be a great capitalist. She's just saying until you die, make enough money to be successful. But I think her using the word capitalist is very unethical, because it's unethical to be a capitalist. And I think it's dangerous. And I'm concerned about where she's coming from. Her saying male nature makes me think she's a TERF. And so, you know, ultimately, yes, we live in systems, and ultimately we still have our own lives. So I want you to just be reminded, okay, that you exist. Like, you're real, you're tangible, okay? You really, wow, Brittany, that's like the worst drawing I've done yet. You are a person, okay? It's because my mouse, I need a new mouse. Okay, you exist. Okay, then the world exists, okay? Then the world exists, okay? It's not like the world exists, so you exist, or you exist, so the world exists. You have to go home and sleep in this body, have a relationship with this brain, have a relationship with this mind, okay? And then you have to interact with the world. And there needs to be a symbiotic relationship, like a figure eight. I can't do a figure eight right now because it's backwards, but like a figure eight, you know what I mean? It has to be a figure eight. That's what you're aiming for. You're aiming to be in symbiosis. That's what you're trying to do. Okay. And sometimes you stop, and sometimes you derail. Ooh, you come back, and you're back on it again. You're back on it again. And sometimes you derail. Ooh, and then you want to get back on it. You want to get back on it. You want to get back on it. The idea is like we're constantly in conflict. We're in conflict with ourselves. We're in conflict with the world. I mean, we want the world to be a better place, and we can't even get out to get our 10-minute walk in, right? Like, we want the world to be a better place, and we can't even, you know, show up for our family and friends because like we're out of spoons. And why are we out of spoons? Because the system sucks. Like, how can this woman advocate for capitalism when capitalism is like ruining any chance we have at harmony? Like, capitalism is absolutely impacting and uplifting patriarchy. Like, if we want our sons to deconstruct action from gender, we must also make them think that they don't have to be breadwinners because they're men, which is capitalism and patriarchy. Like, how many men perform success to get a mate, to fulfill a gender expectation because of these two structural systems? And how many men don't date black or brown girls because it doesn't fit into the narrative of white supremacy? Like, hello? Racism, patriarchy, capitalism. They are the problems. And until you dismantle every single one of them and deconstruct them from your personal ideologies, you will never be liberated. You cannot liberate yourself personally, and you certainly can't liberate the world until we realize these three things. They're ruining and continuing to ruin everything. They're impacting all of us, and they're killing all of us. And that's it. And that's why picking one and saying like, oh, I'm just going to focus on dismantling this one, all of them have to go.